Good afternoon, esteemed traders and investors. Today is Monday, January 12th. I present to your attention another market review for Forex. As always, I'm glad to be here with you today. So, the trading week is about to begin. Let's take a detailed look at the calendar for the week ahead, carefully pick out the most important and relevant news events, and see that the news flow will actually start for us tomorrow, not today. The well-known and highly anticipated inflation data in the United States, which everyone in the market is waiting for, will be released soon. But that's because things aren't going as well as we'd like. On Wednesday, we have the FOMC minutes, and on Thursday, we have the initial jobless claims. Overall, it's quite a good trading week. Let's see what we can trade on the charts. Let's go. So, let's begin by talking about gold quotes, which have risen quite significantly today, almost 8,000 pips in total. The week opened very powerfully at 9, and that's logical, but why exactly? Because the weekly setup was showing us a so-called squeeze, meaning two regular bars in between, right? Two of them. This is definitely a petty high, so here, the signal bar is long, the extremes have been broken. By its nature and in general, I don't really see any special signals here yet. What's interesting is that the range formed by the Asians wasn't taken out. Well, it's different with different brokers, but I think this is the nearest area of attraction. The level is 4,561, and the highs weren't broken either, so you could say it's a kind of mini auction. But overall, after the non-farm payrolls, the market traded positively. There was a pullback, and then the third wave came, which set new historical extremes. Once again, the euro-dollar pair. Let's also open the weekly time frame. Let's start speculating here. Last trading week was bearish, but let me remind you that the instrument did not break the low of the rather strong bullish initiative week we had in December. There's still a range here, and with a very high probability, it could potentially be broken in the near future. On the H4 time frame, we can clearly see this range right here, and it actually hasn't been broken yet. And there's also the short breakdown zone, which you could also call a technical resistance level. The instrument is currently positioned just below it. It makes sense to assume that the instrument will take out this range. The pound-dollar pair on the weekly time frame, it's pretty much the same story here. We have an inside initiative bar, there's a bearish engulfing bar covering 2 weeks, and there's a range left below. That's also a good signal for a move down for this target. On the H4 time frame, this level isn't as clearly defined. Here's the start of the week, and we've approached it. The nearest short breakdown zone on the H4 is a bit higher up, so it's logical to assume that we'll fall exactly to this level, in correlation with the euro, US dollar, and Australian dollar, US dollar pairs. It's the same story there. Despite the bullish opening of the trading week, we have a beautiful pin bar at the highs and a range below, and the current price is heading toward it. On the weekly time frame, that's almost 500 points. Accordingly, it is logical to assume that there will be a breakout here, either on the nearest news or before it. The area of the chart break is located a little higher. This is the level.
Looking for real trading advantages? Forex offers the lowest spreads and commissions. On major currency pairs, our conditions are better. Lower spreads and only $5 commission instead of $7. That's real savings for every trader. And now, let's get back to the market review.
Dollar. The Canadian dollar has started a short correction. Let me remind you that I am in favor of a big downward movement of this instrument. I have spoken about this many times. The big short break zone is right where the price tags are currently at the moment. There is also a slightly more interesting zone a bit higher up. But overall, whether from here or a bit higher, we have a long way down to go through all these lows. 23 years. Despite all the twists and turns, I have rewritten all the necessary extremes. Let me remind you, that's a 2,000-point move. I hope you caught it. There was a strong three-wave structure here. Impulse, pullback, third wave, double top, everything according to the textbook. Congratulations to those who took part in this move. Oil finally went up last week. Let me remind you, we had a clear and well-defined three-wave structure here. Those who bought after the major long breakout could already be in profit. They've locked in gains, so this week, if we get good prices for buying again, it could be another opportunity. And as for Trump, he's an unpredictable guy, so you can try playing this interesting three-wave structure, but always remember to manage your risk carefully. On the 4-hour time frame, Bitcoin is currently experiencing a downward movement in price. It tried to bounce off the long breakout zone, but there is an extremum above. It was broken through. It's clear that buyers are having a hard time, so be careful here. The weekly time frame gave us a pin bar signal here, which clearly doesn't indicate a continuation of the long trend. On top of that, it's a bearish engulfing bar, so after this pin, we could very well head down. And in principle, it all makes sense. A pin bar, a bearish engulfing bar, and we could go through the lows. This is possible, my friends.
I also want to remind you that every InstaForex client automatically receives loss insurance. For every $1 of compensation, only $4 of your friend's investments are required. Just submit a request, and your losses will be recovered. Let's continue with the review.
The American stock market, S&P 500 and Nasdaq, everything is opening in the red for us, which means people are starting to move into the dollar. If they're not moving into the dollar, then it should at least be strengthening, right? But the S&P 500 has been setting new highs, rewriting historical extremes, while the Nasdaq has not done that. And it still has nearby extremes that it could reach. That's why the Nasdaq is actually more interesting in terms of long impulses. But in terms of breakouts, there's really not much particularly interesting happening here because the long breakout has already been tested previously. And that's basically it. Right now, there's an intermediate level that we could potentially hit. But for the Nasdaq, I think that the potential is much greater than for the S&P 500 at the moment. So dollar franc started the week with a noticeable decline. But let me remind you that this instrument is also currently breaking into the zone of another significant and extended long breakout. No matter how you look at it, it's definitely there. I don't particularly like old breakouts, or as I often say, the main ones are at the bottom. Those who bought from the bottom can continue to hold their positions. The first target is right here, and the weekly time frame signaled a strong and powerful long impulse last week. And logically, this week we can expect the growth of this instrument to continue, driven by persistent long side initiative and ongoing bullish sentiment. If it gets broken through, then longs should be closed on the Canadian franc from this instrument, and then further grid orders. If the grid of limit buy orders is broken through, with a step of 500, the audio is rising. Notice that the mirror level was tested. So, those who sold during the test of the mirror level, you need to close your short positions. If you want to participate in this instrument again, set up a grid of limit sell orders with a step of 500 points above this year's high.
With InstaForex, you can triple your profit. For every $4 of your friend's investments, you automatically get an extra $1 added to your profit, with no extra conditions.
New Zealand dollar franc. If the low of the year is broken, set up a grid of limit buy orders with a step of 500. The Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar is steady for now. If you haven't accumulated above this year's high, set a grid of limit sell orders with a step of 500. Euro Aussie is in a range, so we leave it alone. Euro Canadian dollar is rising. If this year's high is broken, set a grid of sell orders with a step of 500.
We also have a great offer. Fund your account and get a 30% tradable bonus. Trade with additional capital and expand your opportunities with InstaForex.
Silver has rewritten all possible extremes, which has disappointed us a bit. In terms of the fact that the short breakdown zone wasn't actually tested, but the long breakdown zone truly worked out beautifully for us last week, a massive move, but the stop levels were also quite large. Let me remind you that for silver, there's still a zone left here. They might take it out, so you can look for careful short entries from here. The potential is just enormous overnight. Friends, InstaForex offers a free consultation with a personal trading consultant. Follow the link in the video description, fill out the callback form, and gain access to exclusive offers and special trading conditions. BRT Plus for risk-free trading. That's all. Trade with InstaForex, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for new reviews.